I was born in
2016.
2000. No, my place.
Ypsilanti.
I'm 7 years old. My favorite food is pizza. My favorite movie is Elemental. I have a favorite space. It's Mars. And I like to sing and dance in color. I also like to ride horses because unicorns are my favorite animal. And I have 2 siblings. I'm the oldest. Is 7 years old. My brother and sister are 5 and 3. And I have Friedreich Ataxia. It's hard to walk, but I still am going through it.
You're going through it? Is there anything that you have to do because of Friedreich's ataxia that most kids don't?
Takes a lot of blood draws.
Takes a lot of blood draws? Is there anything that you would like to tell somebody who has Friedreich's ataxia or any other kind of challenges that would help them?
If you have Friedreich's ataxia, you just have to be brave and how to get through it. My brother helps me.
Your brother does?
No, my sister.
Oh, what did she do?
Well, she announced me that I'm a tough girl.
Oh, she tells you that you're tough.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
That's it.
Thanks, Arlee.
You just heard from Arlee, one of our 2 feature kiddos for the month of April 2024. The other is her brother, Abel. Whenever we can, we love to hear from the kids themselves and couldn't have started this episode any better than with Arlee. Welcome back to the Go Shout Love podcast. Today we are talking with Becca and Myles, the parents to Arlee and Abel and their little sister Annie. We are beyond grateful for the time we get with these families, either in person or virtually. However, we are at the mercy of technology, which occasionally just doesn't cooperate. Becca and Myles were gracious enough to talk to us on their way to a well-earned family vacation, and we recorded this episode when the signal was not at its best. That being said, we have cleaned it up as best as we could and are ready to share their journey with you. I encourage you, even in moments when it might be difficult to understand what is being said, to please stick with it. If you do, you will get to hear an incredible story about their journey as a family and the medical challenges of their adorable kids. Leading this conversation is Josh Veach, the Executive Director of Go Shout Love. As always, please share this podcast and help us shout love as loud as possible.
Becca and Myles, thanks for joining me on the Go Shout Love podcast. It's so great to have you, and we're excited to hear from your family and kind of introduce and learn about what you guys are going through and meet your kids. So let's start there. Becca, introduce your family to us and tell us their names and ages.
Sure. So in our family, we have Myles. He's dad, and do you want to know how old he is too?
I mean, if you want to out him like that, that was not a directed question to put anybody on the spot there. So I'll leave that. You guys have a car ride ahead of you still after you talk to me, so I won't. I'm gonna let you make that call.
So we're in our 30s, and I'm Becca. I'm mom. We have Arlee, who is 7. She'll be 8 in October. Annie is 5. She'll be 6 in July, and Abel just turned 3 in December.
All right. So they are a good kind of, 2 years apart. Let's go into, just tell me about the dynamic of those kids and how like what they, 2 years apart. Is that a fun age gap, or is that you answer that how you will.
Sure. So 2 years apart is, I would say, chaotic mostly, but also they love playing with each other. But I think the closeness in age also lends for some significant arguments or disagreements, and just, they're still learning how to share all of them. And so every time they get good at sharing with one, then another one came into the picture. So, but the girls are great big sisters. They absolutely love taking care of their brother and each other. Annie is definitely She's our middle girl. Our middle girl. She's the motherly type, so she's always trying to mother Arlee and Abel. So there's definitely that kind of dynamic where Arlee's like, "You're not my mom," and then Abel typically likes when Annie helps him out. Let's see, Arlee loves to play and kind of be in charge. She has that typical oldest kid ability. Played a lot of the games up, and usually Annie and Abel play along fairly well. And then Abel's our jokester. He loves to make everybody laugh all the time.
Awesome.
So that's kind of the dynamic. He does a really good job playing with both girls in like typical brother fashion, at least for our family. He likes to take on his sisters, so he likes to kind of rile them up when he can.
Yeah. So being the youngest doesn't stop him from learning to push buttons, like know what buttons to push and get the reaction. Yeah, that's awesome.
Usually he's typically very sweet and kind to them, but he does like to.
That's what brothers, I think, in general are for, right? I mean, that's kind of what we do. All right. So if you had to describe each of your kids in just 3 words, what would you say about each of them?
So we said that Abel is fun-loving and energetic, and I'm not going to remember all 3 words. Fun-loving and energetic, and he is spunky, and Annie is sweet and caring and full of all of the emotions, so full of love and joy. And when she gets angry, she's really angry, but she's just full. She's so full of emotion. And then Arlee is caring and artistic, like her own person. She's very unique and independent.
Yeah, that's awesome. So I would love to know, as a family, what does fun look like? What do you guys do for fun?
Well, we love to be, Myles grew up outdoors, as did I, and so we always enjoy being outside with our family. Live on a lake, a small lake, so typically we're always outside of the lake. In the summer, we're at the beach, like every single day. So the kids love to be outside and be at the beach in the water. The winter time, flooding and snowing, or like anything in the snow. Arlee loves dancing and music and singing and drawing and coloring. Love to play board games in the winter time. Usually just pretty content if we're all just doing something together for the most part. If that's playing tag inside or just wrestling with Dad in the evening, usually that's what our fun looks like.
Yeah. Any good reason to get out of the house? Tell us a little bit about when, I'm assuming since Arlee is older, she started presenting some things of concern first. So let's start there and kind of what happened, or what did you notice that was of concern that kind of started you guys down this journey?
So she was probably about 2.5 when we first started really noticing some like physical challenges. So like she was tripping very often. She was struggling to run and jump and climb up the stairs like she normally did. One of the big things was we were just walking back from the boat, and she kind of just like sat on the ground and just didn't want to walk anymore. She was just so tired. At that time, we thought, she was being 2.5. But looking back, we could definitely tell that like she was just like fatigued. We'd been playing outside all day, and she was just really, really tired. And then we got her into some physical therapy, and then she would kind of gain a little bit of strength back and then lose it, gain a little strength back and lose it. So right around 2.5 is we kind of noticed things starting. And then as she got older and with physical therapy, we thought they would kind of improve, but they either like remained the same, or some of her like gross motor skills got weaker or like more challenging for her to do.
And so what was the next step in trying to figure out if this is just something, that needs some extra PT versus there's something going on under the surface?
Sure. So we did PT for a few years. My sister is a pediatric physical therapist, so tough to do. And maybe kind of some things to look out for to see if like they weren't getting better. She lives far enough away that she couldn't help directly, but more of like consultative. So after physical therapy, probably for like 2 years, on and off for 2 years, noticing things just getting better. And she was just small for her size. And we kind of took her to a pediatrician then who reached out to neurology just to see if there's anything that to look for genetically to see if like what was causing the weakness. And then neurology, we went there, and then they ran a ton of genetic tests. The course of probably 6 months or so, they did some X-rays and an electric, basically essentially like a shock test to see if her nerves in her legs were responding to stimulation. She didn't like it. Painful for her. But so we did a couple of those tests and MRI, and kind of everything came back negative that they ran. After like a year of looking for a reason, their diagnosis was they couldn't find anything. We just have to wait until science caught up.
So genome and exome, and no results, nothing.
Correct. Yeah. So when they suggested that we wait for a couple of years, Myles and I decided that didn't really sit well with us, and so we went to Cincinnati Children's Hospital. They're renowned for finding genetic imperfections or genetic diseases. So we went there, and he kind of said, well, our neurologist said, I think it could be this one thing, but it could be rare. He said, or it could be that we just don't know what it is. That it could be this Friedreich's ataxia, which is really rare, or it could be something we don't know yet. So if this comes back negative, I'll send you to like the National Institute of Health, and they can run some tests and kind of look at. And so then they ran the genetic test, and it came back positive for Friedreich's ataxia. And that's where we stayed in Cincinnati.
So I just want to jump back to your total time in terms of trying to figure out a diagnosis. That sounded like, was it 3 years plus that you guys were kind of watching and looking to see what was going on?
Yeah, I think the first 2 years we were more kind of just assuming that physically she was just going to be a slower progressing child. We weren't necessarily too concerned when she was younger. Once she kind of hit like 3.5, 4, that's when we really started just becoming more wary of like, we don't think this is just like she's having a hard time physically. We kind of tell that it would like. So starting at 4 is when we really started looking for a diagnosis, and then she was diagnosed in January of 2022. So she would have been 6. So about 2 years total for like after looking for her.
Yeah. So going to the diagnosis, can you tell us what that is, and just in a few, like in layman's terms, what that is doing to the body? Because I'm assuming you, like most parents at this point, you've become an expert in medical. You're a medical expert, whether you signed up to be one or not, because you've done all the research and you're doing all the appointments and stuff. And so for someone who's listening, who's never heard of that diagnosis before, tell us just what that is and kind of in layman's terms, what's going on in the body.
Sure. So I still don't feel quite like a medical expert in it, but there's just so many facets to this disease. So the general idea is Friedreich's ataxia is a neuromuscular condition that affects the frataxin in the kids' bodies. So their bodies are not making enough frataxin. And it's at a cellular level. So and the mitochondria needs frataxin, all of the cells in your body need frataxin. So if her body's not making enough of this, and the cells are essentially oxidating and dying. So, or the mitochondria, because it's not getting enough, isn't producing the right type of like proteins needed in the body for specific types of cells. So what it kind of looks like for our kid is that there's muscle weakness and there's neuropathy. So her Arlee's muscles specifically are weaker in her legs and turns. Abel's, I'm assuming, will get that way, but he's currently unaffected. Let's see what else. All of those things out. And then the neuro part of it is that Friedreich's ataxia causes ataxia, which is balance and coordination issues. So walking and just having your body do what you're wanting it to do, there's some loss of signal between your brain and what your muscles are doing.
Gotcha. Okay. And so that you just mentioned there that that Abel also tested positive, and so because this is a genetic thing, you guys, I'm assuming, got everyone tested to see kind of where did this come from, and is there anything else that to be aware of, and so just to fill that part of the story in.
Oh, yeah. So Myles also was saying that when we found out that it's what Friedreich's ataxia is, he said that he wanted to mention that it's a progressive disease. So when we first found out about it, it's progressive and life-shortening. So without a cure or treatment, there's nothing that we could do or stop this disease from happening. The life part becomes affected. And then with genetics, we got Annie, Arlee, and Abel tested. We found out that Arlee tested positive. I believe the next step was to get Myles and I tested, as well as the kids too. There is a rare chance that we could have both had Friedreich ataxia as well. There are some cases where people present extremely later in life, like in their 30s or 40s. So we got tested. Both Myles and I are carriers. So in order for the kids to have ataxia, they both had to have the recessive gene from Myles and I. Essentially, that looks like they had a 25% chance of not being a carrier or having Friedreich's ataxia, a 50% chance of being a carrier, or 25% chance of having Friedreich's ataxia. So we found out that Arlee and Abel have Friedreich's ataxia. Annie is not a carrier, nor does she have Friedreich's ataxia. So she does not have any chance of her kids one day, if she chooses to, having.
That progressive word is a tough one to swallow, especially after you've been on a couple-year journey of figuring out what's going on. And so I'm curious, how did you guys navigate that? It's I'm sure one that's you're still navigating, I would assume. But what do you where do you look to process that?
Well, I lean pretty heavily on Myles and our faith. I mean, the progressive, it's hard. I feel like we are constantly kind of in this state of watching for like what's going to happen next, like what's the next thing that's going to happen. There's never like a sense of calm or a sense of like peace about it, because we know that it's not going to stay this way forever. Like, so if we're in a good spot right now, we kind of just have to really focus on just enjoying what we have today and having faith that God will provide us for whatever we need that comes in the future, but we're trying to take kind of each day as it comes. I rely heavily on Myles and some of our close family friends and our family to get us through those times where like something new is happening, or results from like blood work or scans or things like that are coming back showing progression. That's always kind of tricky. Those doctor's appointments that we have each month kind of give me a lot of anxiety, and Myles really helps me kind of calm down.
Yeah, ultimately it's just relying on faith and like Becca was saying, kind of close family friends.
Yeah, and I'm going to come back to that piece of it, especially the family friends and the relationships here in just a minute, because one of the things that we hear so often from families is how important community is, and we've found that that's true in the diagnosis space when you are able to connect with a group of people that, especially when what you're going through is extremely rare, to find other people. A lot of times people talk about Facebook groups where that they connect with not only information and get knowledge from those groups, but also true relationship, because they're navigating something very similar that very few people can actually relate to. But then also that just personal connection of family and friends. We're going to come back to that in just a second, because I think that's a big piece of their story that I want to hear about. But I do want to know, so going back to Abel also testing positive, how has that presented anything presented for him yet? And how do you go about, now that you know in advance, is there anything in place to help? I know you said there's no cure or specific treatments, but is there anything that's come out yet that's been able to at least slow progression or delay any sort of onsets, that now that you know that with early detection for him might be helpful?
Yeah. Oh, so I do want to backtrack. There is FDA did approve a not a cure, but it's a treatment to kind of slow the progression. However, it's only approved for 16 and up. So kids currently under 16 don't have any options. Currently, right now, we're in a clinical trial, and the idea of the clinical trial is to there's some of the youngest kiddos in it. Abel is actually, I think, one of the youngest ones who's in this clinical trial. But this clinical trial that we're in, the point of the clinical trial is to slow the progression. They found some data on it that it delays it increases like their longevity of walking by they said so. It's kind of hard to tell for exactly how they do that, but they said clinical trial drugs that they're on currently has shown people who are walking ambulatory for additional 9. That's currently what the kiddos are on. They're trying to see if there's any additional benefits for younger kiddos specifically that time. But as far as progression, I know some people do diets and things like that. One of the big things that the doctors and other parents have said is just keep them active for as long as they can, and kind of increase their stamina and increase their muscle mass before the disease kind of really takes hold, because once it does, then the fatigue kicks in and it's really hard to kind of regain new muscle or be not tired enough to continue to exercise. Sorry, could you hear me?
Yeah, sorry, I was losing you a little bit, so I turned your video off just to see if that would help a little bit. So I think what I want to make sure that I got what you were saying there, the gist of it. So there's the FDA, there's recently been some approved medication that is at least going to help with some of the onset. Is that what you said?
So the FDA drug that has been approved helps slow down the quick progression of the disease. So
Gotcha.
What they said was they do it by a standard of like a specific, they call it the mFARS, which is a rating scale. So they found that this drug is able to keep the disease kind of at bay for an extended period of time. They're not exactly sure at this point in time, because it's kind of new, and especially in pediatrics, how long they can kind of hold the disease at bay, but it definitely slows the progression.
Gotcha.
People on the drug still do progress, but they found through natural history studies they're not progressing as quickly.
Gotcha. Okay. So good news in that front. Like there's progress happening in the research.
Yes, there's lots of research even in like the very beginning phases of research, animals and things like that. There's a lot of stuff that's coming out. We just know that it takes a while to get to human phase, and then even longer to get to the kids. So this drug has been approved for just over a year, and they still haven't up with pediatric trial. So adults have been able to take this drug for about a year. We're just kind of waiting. We're waiting for the FDA to kind of allow the pediatric trials to start on this specific drug, and hopefully some other drugs coming up too.
Gotcha. Okay. And you said that that both Arlee and Abel are currently in a clinical trial, right? And how long does that go for?
The clinical trial, when we started it, was 72 weeks. We are been a whole year. So we've been in it for a year. And then once our 72 weeks is up, depending on what's coming, if there's any more clinical trials now, we have the option to continue that clinical drug. And I think they call it an extension study. And so it's not as intensive of visits or things like that, but we still have to go in and get them checked out. And that's the only place we get this ubiquinone that they're on, this drug that they're on. So
one of the aspects of kids dealing with rare medical journeys that I think tends to not be discussed as much is some of the unseen tolls that it has on them, like the mental and emotional impacts. And you've mentioned in a previous call that that's something that especially Arlee has had to face some. And so I wondered if you would just kind of share a little bit about how that's impacted your family and how you're navigating that.
So one of the hardest parts about the disease is usually the unseen things, especially for Arlee, who is old enough to understand that Friedreich's ataxia makes her look different or look different physically. And then she just, for us, we can talk to her about why it happens and the physical things of that. But it's really hard when she asks these questions about why it happens to her and things like that, where we don't have the answers, or big questions like, well, when is it going to be fixed and things like that. So our biggest thing that we rely on is just it's God's plan for her, and God always has a good plan, even though sometimes there's definitely hard seasons in it. We just have to trust that. We also tell her that she's beautiful and she has all these other qualities about her that are absolutely wonderful and not affected by Friedreich's ataxia. And so we really try to play on her strengths. As far as Abel, he's still too young to understand any of that yet. So we feel like we'll have a better idea of how to handle that as he gets older, just because we've been through it once.
I think a lot of people on the outside focus on medical treatments and how we can heal or get our child better. They don't often realize that Arlee 100% knows that something is wrong with her and that she is falling behind her peers, as well as her sister Annie physically. It's very hard as a parent to see your child fall and cry on a daily basis just be just downright mad at a disease that has no cure. We as parents continually tell her how loved, beautiful, and unique she is, and that she is made perfect in God's image.
In an earlier conversation, you'd mentioned, Becca, how impactful the relationships in your lives have been in being a support network for your family. So just briefly touch on who those people are and what they mean to you and how they've helped you navigate this rare medical journey that that Arlee and Abel are on.
For me, I think if I didn't have the support system that we did, this whole journey would have been much harder. I've been able to lean on my family and my friends and our close friends from church to help mostly just grieve with and talk things over. I've been able to talk with my family just about like what this looks like in our future and just sharing some of our concerns and fears. We've also talked about like what family vacations are going to look like, or maybe things that we need for our home period. We've also been able to talk to people in our church about just how we deal with this as a family, making sure that we're supporting our kids in the right way and just glorifying God through all of it. They've been a wonderful resource for us as well, and my friends have just really been there to support me and help me if I'm trying to find certain information on a topic. Being a rare disease, it's really hard to find a lot of good, reliable research. And so it's been great to have friends and family who've helped do that. Also, just like whenever I'm kind of feeling down or sad or anything about that, usually my sister, my mom, and my mother-in-law are usually always there to help me grieve through that and also to kind of lift me back up. Obviously, Myles is who I talk to the most about the whole thing, and he's just been so strong and supportive for me. You know, being able for us to sit in the sadness kind of, but he also was able to pull us forward and just help us live each day with as much joy as we can.
It would be a very dark, small world without our family, friends, and church rallying around us and being such an incredible support system. I'm hesitant to name people for fear of leaving somebody out, but just to name a few that really come to mind. My sister Katie, my sister-in-law is Rachel and Amanda, my brother-in-law is Derek, Bill, and Patrick, my parents, David and Christy, my father-in-law, Bruce, who passed away a few years ago, and his wife, Tish, my grandmothers, just really all of our extended family. Also, my pastor, Jeff, and our church family at Emmanuel Bible Church, just as well as countless others. These people have all touched our lives in really unique ways, and we're incredibly humble and just forever grateful for all of them.
Another huge support for me has been the Friedreich Ataxia Facebook pages for families in Michigan, as well as the Friedreich Ataxia parent group that has a huge amount of parents with children who have Friedreich's ataxia from all around the world. I'm able to post questions there, and it's a forum where other parents can give answers, and or I can help other parents get answers, or we can share resources, period. That's been really helpful for maybe different questions that arise, such as like, hey, this happened to our kids. Is this something that we typically see in FA? Has anybody else ever experienced this? It also just helps us feel not so alone in the whole disease journey, the Friedreich's ataxia journey. Just knowing that there are other parents out there who are going through the same thing and maybe have already gone through parts of this is really comforting to know that we're not alone. I have a couple of parents who have young kids, so who are really walking kind of in the same shoes that we're walking in, and we have their phone numbers, and we're able to kind of text back and forth, just talking about different things like what's the best wheelchair to get, or the best types of shoes that fit brace as well, or has anybody ever heard of this kind of complication, or what about these test results, and just there's not that much data online, and so when we get some of these things, our answers can be really hard to find. But it's been really nice to have other parents who are going through the exact same thing, so that's been a huge support to me as well.
All right, so I have just a couple more questions for you guys, and this is one that, if you're okay with it, I'd love for you both to answer. What have Arlee and Abel taught you about life?
Arlee and Abel have both taught me that life can change in an instant, and just really to take each day as it comes and enjoy it. They've taught me to be just be resilient and just stay positive no matter what.
Well, I think that kind of all of our kids help with this. I mean, it's so fun to kind of watch the world and then kind of experience all of the wonderful things that we have and that we get to do together through their lens. Like, for example, something as simple as just running through big mud puddles in our yard and just having them laugh and just be silly and totally content in the moment is amazing to watch. And kind of we've definitely learned to be content and enjoy every moment that we have. When you get a progressive diagnosis, it really just makes you slow down and really not take anything for granted. So, sometimes we're tired and exhausted at the end of the night, and Arlee just wants to snuggle up and chit-chat for a while before she goes to bed. And, we still have lots of other things in our to-do list. But after, the diagnosis, we really have tried to slow down and just take some more time to be together and not focus so much on the to-do list as much as just being together. And Abel has just brought so much joy and humor and silliness into our life. So just being more silly, I think, is what Abel has taught me, because you can never have too much joy or laughter.
And the last one for you guys, and again, if you're open to it, I'd love for you both to answer. What makes you most proud to be their mom and dad?
I'm just really equally proud of all my kids. They're all distinctly and beautifully unique. It's been one of my greatest joys in life to be their dad. This FA, Friedreich Ataxia, will always be part of our family's lives, but I just really refuse to let it define who we are as a family.
I am so proud to be their mom and dad. They make me proud every day. I'm not sure if I can really pinpoint what makes me the most proud. I think I'm the most proud of my kids when they're just sharing God's love and being kind and joyful and compassionate, when they're helping other people, when they're showing grit and tenacity where they don't give up on something. I think that's when I feel the most proud.
I want to thank you guys so much. I know that taking a little bit of time, especially on your vacation as a family, to carve out this conversation is tough and a little bit of extra added stress. So I thank you so much for your willingness to do that and join us here. we're right around the corner from April, and I'm super excited to be able to introduce your awesome family to the Go Shout Love community. And I know that it's going to be a great month of shouting loud for your family, and I hope you'll feel the love from people across the country as they are, making a difference and helping you guys, and just learning about a new diagnosis and new kids and how great they are. And so thank you so much for joining me and sharing your family with us. We appreciate it.
We just want to say thanks for taking the time out of your day to listen to this podcast, and just having the interest in our family and our journey through this. We appreciate all of your support financially and just in our relationships and spiritually. Thank you for all of the prayers and well wishes that we've gotten so far as well.
At Go Shout Love, we do amazing things for amazing families with kids on rare medical journeys. Each month we shout love for families through the sale of creative apparel inspired by the kids. This month's Together is the Best Adventure design is inspired by Arlee and Abel, amazing siblings at different stages of a shared, rare medical journey. Every purchase in April will go to help Arlee and Abel's family save up for a more reliable vehicle to make their drives for appointments and clinical trials safer, more comfortable, and eventually be able to convert to wheelchair accessible when needed. Visit our website at goshout.love to support Arlee and Abel through the purchase of a t-shirt, hat, hoodie, or other items.